Welcome to I'm Too Busy, an interview-based show hosted by a talented makeup artist, Christina Flach. Christina offers viewers a unique blend of personal stories, inspiring journeys, and practical beauty tips. Join the conversation as Christina features successful individuals from various industries who share their insights on health, wellness, makeup, and the keys to their success. So now, please welcome the host of I'm Too Busy, Christina Flach.
Hello, and welcome to I'm Too Busy TV, the show that proves that it's never too late to transform your life. No matter how packed your schedule might be, today we have an incredible guest who embodies the power of personal transformation and peak performance. Joining us is Tanya Oliver, a renowned executive coach, public speaker, and author who has guided countless high achievers to unlock their full potential. With almost 2 decades of experience, Tanya's journey is nothing short of inspirational. She's overcome addiction, depression, and self-sabotage to become a beacon of success and personal growth. Tanya is a mastermind behind the Ultimate Achievers Academy, an online community dedicated to self-mastery and emotional intelligence. Her mission? To help you become mentally, physically, and energetically strong so you can show up as your best self in business and in life. Get ready to be inspired, challenged, and motivated as we dive into Tanya's incredible story and learn her strategies for success. It's time to stop being too busy and start being extraordinary. Welcome, Tanya. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing amazing.
Well, I am so happy to see you. As a last-minute guest replacement, you saved the day. I'm so grateful.
I always say, always be ready, always ready. And here we are.
And here we are. So let's chat about you. So can you share a pivotal moment that led to your transformation from struggling with addiction and depression to becoming a successful executive coach?
Yeah. I feel like my life was a freaking roller coaster. And people are like, what is that one moment? I'm like, there's been several moments, but I feel like sometimes the only way to wake up to live life intentionally is to have like a dark moment of the soul, and so for me it was hitting rock bottom, and I was suicidal at one point, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to be here and I'm going to do this thing called life, I just heard such a strong calling within me. It's like, you're meant to do extraordinary things. And like, just imagine what's on the other side of all this once you get your shiznit together and you start like living life intentionally. And so it was a journey and an embodiment of everything that I teach within my programs. I had to really become it and put it to the test so that I can be like, man, this work works. And in the beginning, it was really hard and challenging, but it's the work behind the work where I say, like, you're a human being before you're a role, task, and responsibility. And so if I wanted to do extraordinary things in the world, I had to really wake up and learn how to become an extraordinary human being. And so that became the journey of figuring out what that was. It wasn't just physical, it was also mental, emotional, and also spiritual.
So what were you doing before all of this? You were a coach then as well, or did you had another job?
Yeah, no, I've been coaching for 20 years, and I came from a lineage of high achieving entrepreneurs. And so entrepreneurship was, I guess, in my bloodline or what I've been shown my whole life. I grew up an athlete. I played 9 years of competitive travel ice hockey. And so that athleticism also had a placement. And I felt like I had this, and I think you can attest to this, is like when I was younger, I felt like I had all these, like I was, these like superpowers, but just like X-Men, but I was so self-destructive because I didn't know how to hone in on them. And I do believe everybody has these God-given gifts, but if they're not directed properly, they can become like liabilities to us. And so I ended up going down the road of addiction because coming from high achieving entrepreneurs, what I realized is it's such an extreme personality trait. That's why I love working with entrepreneurs, because it's like that high achiever. But if you don't learn to turn your pain into like purpose, it can end up becoming very self-destructive and sabotaging. So as I was coaching, my first career was in personal training and nutrition. And I focused more with athletes as well as like executives and CEOs. And when I was overcoming my addictions, I found a woman that was literally an angel, and she wanted to take me on as a student. So that was a blessing. You got to have people that are willing and capable. And I didn't trust a lot of people. You know, when you have a strong personality, it's like not people can't help me. Nobody knows how to like help or deal with my personality and da 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 da. And she really did. And so she taught me a lot on shadow work, which helped me overcome my addictions. I had food, alcohol, and sex addiction, which I think a lot of women don't talk about that. You hear a lot of men, but you don't really hear a lot of women. And I didn't even have the awareness of it. I knew that there was something wrong with me, but I couldn't figure it out. And nobody really knew how to help me or guide me. And so I think I don't think I know when I was really self-destructive, the one thing that kept me in a forward movement mindset was being able to be of service to others. But at the same time, it wasn't resolving what I needed to deal with, which was myself.
Wow. How do you define extraordinary self? And what are some practical tips that people can take to cultivate this into their own lives?
I believe extraordinary self is being able to look yourself in the mirror and really be proud of the person that you are. I believe that there's never a there. There's always like a next level, kind of like a video game. I don't know. I'm an 84 baby. So like we had like Mario Brothers and race cars. And I kind of look at it as like a video game where you have level 1 and you got to die so many times until you start to see the patterns in it. And then you can course correct and almost like anticipate things coming and know how to maneuver. And so I feel like extraordinary self is really knowing yourself. And a lot of people think like once you become enlightened or once you're spiritually connected or once you become an expert that you no longer have cravings, desires, or you don't have like a darkness to you, but we all have darkness and we all have light. It's just which one are we allowing to operate and run the show? So I believe when you're extraordinary, you know yourself, you're honest about yourself, you're honest about your weaknesses, and you have the right people to support you, because I don't believe we're designed to do it alone. I believe that it's important to have people in your corner that in moments of your weakness, you know how to call on for backup, for strength, and having tools when obstacles hit and how to get back up quickly. So I think it's really the embodiment of self-mastery, knowing all aspects of self and knowing who you want to become and starting to sharpen those skill sets and until you become that person. And it's an evolving like a video game. It's like an evolving level. There's really never a there. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like knowing when it's time to pivot and creating new identity and how to do that.
How long was that time period when you started really focusing in on yourself to change? How long was that? And then do you feel like after you got to that point where you felt like you were a little more stable, did that change your perspective on how you dealt with your clients, or was it a different way that you did than before?
Well, right now I feel like because I'm creating a new identity. I always say like we have these identity shifts as we're growing. So right now I'm in the beginning phases of creating a new identity for myself, and so there is a little bit of chaos throughout the process, but it's like you understand the steps that are coming in front of you, so you don't quit on yourself. And as I was going through the process, I kind of joke around. I'm like, the first 20 years of my life were like a big roller coaster. And then the last 20, because I'm 40, have been me reparenting myself and doing a lot of inner child work. And so to answer your question, when you're growing and evolving and there's a part of you that is like, okay, it's time to level up, I don't believe that you're ever going to feel that stability, but I do believe that you can feel security within yourself and having that self-trust and that self-worth to know that you can handle the responsibilities that are about to come your way. One of my favorite quotes is that, with great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility, which majority of people are fearful of success more so than failure. But with great responsibility comes great power. And so those that are called to be leaders, those are called to create lanes for themselves. It's trusting the unknown and trusting like steps that you can't see, but you take the step, and as you take the step, it appears. So I don't believe that you're ever going to feel stability, especially when you're creating a new identity for yourself. Like when you're scaling your business, you're deciding to change career paths, or you have a new identity because you now start a family and you're a new mom, or, you know, your kids leave the house and then you have to, like, there's always an adjustment phase, an adjustment season, part of being human. But you can anchor into security while you're in that while you're feeling instability, if that makes sense.
What do you do for like self-soothing when you
Ugh.
feel like you get triggered by something? Is there something like, do you have some steps that you do? I mean, we
Yeah,
all have had to learn to self-soothe.
I absolutely love that. And honestly, that's what substance abuse is. So when people talk about addiction, addiction is just, it's turning to a tool, which is a program tool, whether it being drugs or sex or toxic relationships or just like things outside of yourself, to soothe yourself, to find relief from the pain you're in, whether it being emotional, whether it being physical, whether it being spiritual. And when you're talking about self-soothing, that's also part of really knowing thyself. And today, actually, I did it today. I create toolboxes and I take my clients to them. I'm like, okay, let's create a toolbox of all the things and moments where you're feeling like you're needing nourishment. Let's create a toolbox for all the moments when you're having cravings and desires, or when you're having anxiety. So I have different tools depending on the different emotional state that I'm going through and the amount of time that I have, because my schedule is so jam-packed, especially taking on new things that require more time, because I'm a beginner at it. There's a learning curve when you're scaling in business, when you're scaling as creating a new identity for yourself. And so you have to have that patience and extra time. Today, my tool was yoga, and also going to the beach and doing an ocean plunge and listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza and meditating. And when I need more self-soothing, it's either going to be pulling my meditational practice, or if I'm having anxiety, I'll do EFT work, which is just like calming the nervous system. Like maybe if I just have 5 minutes, I'll pull my tool of just tapping, which is emotional freedom technique. And so it just really depends on like what I need to pull for self-soothing. Sometimes it's just coming back to my heart and doing anchoring into my breath. So there's so many different tools out there depending on what triggers you're going through.
You know, it's so amazing how people hold their breath and they don't even realize it, and how it does make such a difference.
Yeah, the breath is your
We're
life force.
absolutely, we are going to speak more about all of this with Tanya. I'm Christina Flach, and I'm too busy, and we're going to take a commercial break.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Christina Flach, and today we are chatting with Tanya Oliver. Okay, my friend. So, when is a good time for people to open up and be vulnerable with someone? Is there a time, or like when do your clients open up with you? Does it take some time when you're starting with a new client?
Yeah, I always do consultation calls like before we start to see if they're receptive and how our energy matches, because in order to really help somebody at full capacity, they have to feel that they can trust me. And trust does take time. Like, for example, you and I were a little bit chatting in the commercial break, and one of the reasons I was like, listen, you can ask me anything. Anything's like, on for me. I'm pretty much an open book at this point, but 3 years ago, when I was suicidal, I got out of a really very unhealthy relationship. The guy that I was dating, he died in a car accident. And coming from addiction and healing from it and coming from a family lineage of it, I was like, okay, if I'm going to be here, I'm not going to numb myself. I'm not going to hurt myself, and I'm not going to hurt others. I'm going to put all my work to the practice at such an extreme. That a week later, I learned I was swindled out of $300,000. I felt so embarrassed and humiliated doing this coaching work, right? Like, here I am, this life coach for like 7-figure entrepreneurs. And I had to be able to compartmentalize my emotions and deal with my grieving and deal with the shame and the humiliation, and all these things, and the betrayal and feeling beat up and worn out and washed out, and be able to execute like that's sort of that operating at peak performance no matter what life throws at you. I had to be able to do that within a day. So the only appointment I had canceled was that night when I got the call at 7 p.m. And getting back to what you're saying is that nobody knew what was going on, because in that moment, I knew I was not okay. So I'm really a huge advocate on finding the right people to be a part of your lineup in moments when you are weak, because we are all human beings. No matter how strong we are, no matter how much we know or what our level is, like, we need each other. And in that moment, I had hired 2 coaches that I had trusted, that I could just be ugly, raw, and real with. And I knew that they were capable and they were willing to support me in like my darkest moments, because I still had a job to do. And so, and that's, I think, what separates people that are like pros from like amateurs, is being able to separate your professional life from your business life, but still deal with your stuff like on the sidelines. And nobody knew about this until maybe about 6 months later, where I started sharing pieces of the story. And those are going to be pieces of the story that I'm writing in my book that should be launched this year, about like building the new. But it's like a playbook, because here's the thing: when you are going through like the dark night of the soul and like the darkest of the dark, like, don't share your stuff until you feel like you're not so triggered, or you can talk about it without crying. That's how you know you're not triggered, or that you've healed. And so, especially being on social media, and so many we're sharing all of our stuff because we want to help people, right? But like, there's also a negative side to social media, that if you allow the wrong people in your head in moments that you're weak and vulnerable, it could be very destructive. It could be like really not so great. And so I knew how to wait like until a timing where I could talk about it. But during the process, I was getting help. And a lot of people, like in my country, like, I had no idea like you went through that, because you were totally like on the whole time. And so when you're getting back to what we were saying before the commercials, like having tools and having people and having support, tools I feel like are not enough when you are going through hardship. You need people. We need communities. We need people. We need each other, and we need that accountability. Like, even when I was getting up in the morning and I was having panic attacks and I didn't want to get up, I had a girl that I was working out with, and I go, listen, all I need you to do is make sure I show up at 7 a.m. every day. That's it. I don't want to talk. I just want to work out. I just need to know you're going to be there. And then that she was my line of support for like making sure that I showed up to my workouts. So,
I've gone through grieving myself. I lost my son and my husband and my mother and some really close friends. So I totally understand that. And so it's grieving is one of those things that everyone grieves differently.
mhm.
And creating a new normal, I think, is what's really challenging because the normal that you knew with your boyfriend no longer existed. So you have to create a new normal. And that's what's hard. And I totally agree with you. Exercise was key for me going through that, having my work, having purpose, trying to be grateful. It's hard sometimes to feel grateful when these things happen. And that's why to me, time is such a precious commodity. I don't need a handbag. I don't need a diamond. I need time. And I think that, I think when you've had loss like you and I have had, you really do appreciate time and people. I always am like, I tell everyone I love them, when I leave them, because I never know if I'm going to see them again. And, that's part of my trauma that I deal with, but I just try to be positive, and it's very hard.
Mhm.
So I really commend you for sharing that. And I know it, but it must have taken you to a new level as well with your clients. Like, are you looking at things from a different perspective when you're dealing with your clients? Like, is grief ever a part of the conversation with them? Does it?
Absolutely. Like when you are, people don't realize when you change, you're also grieving a version of yourself, because you have to overcome things, but you also have to become somebody new. And I don't think enough people talk about like the grieving process of yourself, and also the grieving process of when you're growing. Something I've learned a lot through my yoga practice is like the disattachment, like that we have to be disattached, not from a space of like being cold hearted. I think, I believe the strongest people in the world are the ones that have gone through hardship and still have their heart open. So I commend you for that, for still keeping your heart open and still having the willingness to love, when you've lost the people that have been the closest to you, because it's so easy to close your heart off. It's so easy to just want to like put up a wall to the world. And I think the hardest thing is to keep your heart open as you're grieving and as you're healing and as you're stepping into a new version of yourself. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely a process. I learned the importance of accountability and support throughout that process, of how important it really was. I didn't think it was that big of a deal until I needed it, because I've always been like, I got this and I can do it, and da da. And I'm like, I can't do this. I
Yeah.
can't.
Did you ever read the book? I don't know if you know it. I went to grief camp after my husband passed away at Canyon Ranch. And there was this woman rabbi from LA there, and her name was Rabbi Sherry Hirsch. And she had written a book called We Plan and God Laughs. And I recommend it highly, because, we have this plan, of how we think our life's going to be. And then in 1 second, it changes. And so you don't have to be grieving to read the book, but, life has its up and downs and the waves that, we learn to ride. And so it was really helpful to me. I also found it really helpful that, like, thinking about grieving in a positive way, because a lot of times people think that you need to be miserable to be grieving, to honor your loved one. And I think also for me, I have 5 children. And so for me, I couldn't totally lose my shit, because it affects them so much and they'd already been through so much. So that was really helpful to me. And just, if I got too hungry, too tired, too not grateful, and didn't exercise, everything seemed so much worse than it was. So it was really, that's when I was talking about self-care, how important it is, because, everything, so much in our mind can get so much bigger than it is. And so I found that to be helpful. Do you find those things to be helpful, or did you have other things that you did?
Oh, I mean, self-care is number one. And what fascinates me but never surprises me is that a lot of people don't even know what that is. Like, how do I care for myself, especially women? And if you have children, it's like you have that guilt. If you run businesses, it's almost like a baby too. Like I consider my business like a child and taking care of people. And so it's of course it's not the same. but
No, but
what
I
but
know.
even for businesses, you can grieve on businesses. There was a season where I resented my business because I was like, I'm putting in all this love and I feel like I'm not getting any love back. And that's what resentment is. So like you can have these different feelings towards really any area of your life. And yeah, I mean, self-care is everything is an extension of you, your business, your life, your relationships. And so just like they say, if you don't know how to love yourself, how do you possibly expect that you can love somebody else? And self-care is the first step to self-love. If you're not taking care of yourself, you're not loving yourself. I don't care what people say. If you don't know how to take care of yourself and you're not taking care of your wants, your needs, and your desires, and you don't know how to express those in a healthy way to yourself and others, there's no way you can love yourself to a high level of a capacity to then be able to serve others. One of my favorite quotes is by Katie Reed, and she says, self-care is giving the world the best of you versus what's left of you.
Oh, I love that. That's a
Mm-hmm.
good one.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think someone who feels too busy can start incorporating meditation, exercise, and quality sleep into their life without feeling overwhelmed? Like, what steps
Yeah.
can people take?
I love this one. I actually built a whole course out on this. The biggest thing is a mindset shift, and the reason why we procrastinate things is because it's not a lazy trait, it's the inability to process negative thoughts and emotions. And one of them is like even procrastinating going to bed or taking care of yourself in those areas of like meditation. It just comes down to understanding how it's going to give you more time. And when you're so caught up in the busyness, it becomes sloppy. And I've been talking a lot about this with like friends and clients, is that it's like malpractice. You know, when doctors like have malpractice, and because you're working on the human body and it's like a surgery, but what about our malpractice in our business, in our relationships, in our lives? And so when you slow down, it becomes, I think, of busyness and like self-care as like a slingshot. You have to pull back to scale forward. So if you want to actually sprint and be more efficient and more productive and mentally sharp and like be in a really great energetic state, those are the non-negotiables that have to be met, like your quality of sleep, your meditation. Even if you just start with like adding 15 extra minutes or 1 minute meditations and then building upon that. And one of my mindsets of like whenever I'm resisting something or fighting something new is I'll say, let me just try this for 30 days. And if it doesn't work, I'll go back to what I was doing, which wasn't working anyway. So what's the worst thing that could happen?
Right. What are some common limiting beliefs or labels that you've observed in high achievers, and how do you help them overcome those?
The biggest thing is that self-critic and the self-depreciation, which comes down to like disappointment. I realized disappointment. So about a year ago, I got certified. I knew there was something missing in my practice with belief work. And that's when I got into theta healing. Have you ever heard of theta healing?
No, tell me about it.
So theta healing is when you put somebody in a theta brainwave. It's like a self-hypnotic state, and you're able to get to their subconscious by helping them navigate through fear, and through resentment and through like different types of emotions, where you can help them. Like they have to say it, and you're just knowing how to ask the right questions as they're in a theta space, and it allows you to get to the core, the bottom belief, because we actually have 4 levels of belief. Everybody thinks it's just the subconscious, but the subconscious has 4 categories. We have the core, the genetic, the soul and the history level. So sometimes we carry on cellular impressions and cellular memories that could be like from our ancestors, from our mom, our grandpa, because we are 70% water and we were birthed from our mom and taking on her cells and DNA. And so there's some type of impressions. Our soul comes here for different lessons as well. But when you understand this, one of the biggest things that I've learned is that with high achievers, specifically in the entrepreneur realm, the biggest thing is like never satisfied. I think you can like agree to that. Where it's like never satisfied. I want more. I want more. It's not enough. And that comes down to the bottom belief is that like life is a disappointment or I'm a disappointment, which all this stems from inner child stuff anyway. And so, so that's one of the core things that I work on with people is like overcoming that and finding pleasure in life and pleasure in moments and satisfaction. Another thing too is like learning how to be fully present, and that calmness, that it freaks a lot of people out in the beginning because they associate being present and being in that energy with laziness. That like calmness is like lazy because they're just like, I gotta do more. I gotta do more. Da, 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 da. It's like, oh, like hone in, like breathe, buddy. So that calmness and that calm energetic state, people learn to really tap into that because that's really when we are in our superpower, so we can be fully present. And it's almost like you become like Neo in the Matrix, where you see things coming and it like comes at you, can see it and you can move because you have so much clarity and mental sharpness. And it's almost like you can prophesize things happening before they happen. So I know I kind of did a little circle around your question, but it kind of went back to the other one as well, where the bottom beliefs, as well as like why it's important to incorporate the meditation and the self-care. So you really do, especially if you're somebody who aspires to be a leader, you want to be a better leader, like you got, and I hate saying you have to, but it's imperative that you really embody these practices because one of my favorite quotes, I think this explains this perfectly. Another favorite quote is
You have good ones.
Abe Lincoln is like, you give me like an hour to chop down a tree. If I have an hour to chop down a tree or something like that, some type of like 6 hours or whatever, give me 4 and I'll sharpen my axe. You are the axe. So it's efficiency.
How does positive self-dialogue contribute to success? And what tips can you offer for improving one's internal narrative?
When you take care of the body, it's going to help you navigate to the mind a little smoother. If you're not taking care of your body, your mind is going to be way more chaotic. So that's why the physical exercise is super important. As far as self-dialogues, you got to get them back to the theta healing. When you understand all of the negative self-talk, and maybe you would just, for like a day or for a week, just anytime you have a negative thought about yourself, write it down. And then what you can do is you can write the complete opposite on the other side. So if you say affirmations or incantations like all the time, but they're not relevant to your subconscious programming, it's not going to make a huge impact. And so I'm all about efficiency and maximizing your time and energy. And you want to just identify like, what are your core excuses and how do you create, how do you like find those words and then write the opposite. So then you start to repeat those words so you have the right ones that resonate with your subconscious programming.
We are going to continue our conversation with Tanya Oliver in 2 minutes. I'm Christina Flach, and I am too busy.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network. Network and TuneIn Radio, as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hello, welcome back to I'm Too Busy. I'm Christina Flach, and today my guest is Tanya Oliver, and we're going to continue our chat. So you emphasize the importance of living with clear intention. How can someone start to cultivate this into their daily life?
I love this question. Well, it stems with what's your intention? And it changes throughout seasons because life is seasonal. So getting back to your question is, I think people need to get clear on what they want, because that's what a goal is. Like, what do I want? And then from there, start to make sure that, well, here's the thing that I work on with clients. So maybe you guys could take notes is, we set these expectations of like, when I achieve the house, the car, the bank account, the relationship, then I will feel some type of way about myself and my inner world. And so an intention comes back into like getting clear on how do you want to feel and starting to embody that every single day. So if you believe your career is going to allow you to feel significant, well, how can I start to feel significant today? And then align the people, places, and things with that intention. It's also a great way to funnel out the things that are not in alignment, because I'm really big on the alignment culture, which comes down to your intention. And the reason why we set goals is because we believe we're going to feel some type of way about ourselves. But the cool thing about our feelings is we can start to embody the feeling today and hit those type of goals like within our day. And so first thing is just getting clear on how you want to feel once you reach that thing, once you get to the there, and then reverse engineer it and line everything up. And that's go ahead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that's it. That's really how the best way simplest way I could say to cultivate it in your daily life.
How do you see anything that's consistent in your clients, that all of them have something in common, or are they all so different?
The tiers of where they're at in their life is different, because the main clientele I work with is the high achieving entrepreneur that has a very specific personality trait, which is me. But now I've got it like honed in, which is that extremist personality where it's like all in or all out. Maybe yo-yos in different areas of their life. You know, a lot of people are like, I'm great at setting goals. Well, maybe you're great at setting goals in business, but how are you doing in your relationships? Maybe you're great in your relationships, but how are you doing in your finances? Like, are you seeing like ups and downs in specific areas in your in the wholeness of your life? Because you are not just like what you do. You're actually a human being before your role, task, and responsibility. So the common traits that I see is like that extremist personality. I also see that people are more in their head than in their heart. And so I teach a lot of like mind, heart, and then if they're a female, womb coherence. So getting all aspects of self on your winning team, which is part of self-mastery, and like really knowing how to fill up your like cup with your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual, because there's no way you're going to operate at your best self in your greatness if any of those pillars are missing. And so those are like the common things. Typically there's inner child work to be done. There's shadow work to be done. I think everybody should be aware, and I don't like saying the word should because it's a critical word if we're talking about subconscious stuff. I think it will benefit everybody to do these type of things because it's part of human performance and it's part of human behavior. And so those are the common things with the extremist, with people that I work with.
What role do you think does accountability play in personal transformation, and how do you incorporate this into your coaching?
Accountability is huge. That accountability and support is so critical. When you're building the new and you're stepping into a completely new version of yourself, think about it. So I'm 40 and I've been hardwired for like 40 years a certain way, whether it being my programming, my environment programming. So I'm very intentional at this point to make sure that everything's in alignment with like the vision and the dream and the gifts that God has intentionally placed inside of me. But a lot of people aren't that aware or have the tools and resources. And so getting back to your question, it's like, what was your question? I was like going down a little bit of a tangent.
About accountability.
Oh,
And
yeah.
how do you incorporate into your coaching?
Yeah. Thank you. I have like 10
good.
things at the same time. See, that's what happens. So the accountability is really important because we need reminders all the time. Just like I needed a reminder right there, like having somebody in your corner that's going to remind you, and even having accountability buddies, because you're going to go through a mixture of emotions, and sometimes you're not going to feel like it, or some days, you're going to have a million things to do. And so when you have somebody reminding you, you're more likely to get to where you want to be the fastest. I'm not saying you can't get to where you want to be at some point in time, but to get you there the fastest, like you're going through a time machine, is having that accountability.
You mentioned emotions as our guidance systems. How can people better tune into interpret their emotions for personal growth, do you think?
Mm-hmm. This is a little bit of like a duality one, because as we're talking about emotions, if you're always going based on if you feel like it, most of the time you're not going to show up. So you have to have that discernment on knowing, it's kind of like, here I am and here's where I want to be. Let me come over here. But like, it's like you're going over this bridge. So instead of thinking of the process of going through, which if you aren't understanding your emotions, in a way that in the moment versus like once you achieve the thing. So it's like doing redundant things, for example, like going to work out. I get up at 5 a.m. I don't want to get up at 5 a.m. I don't want to always go to the gym at 6 a.m., just as an example. But I always know that, like, so I don't rely on my emotions. I know that they're there, but I know that the tool of exercise, I always feel better mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually once I do the damn thing, like once I achieve that goal. And so when that's where I say it's a little bit tricky. But then in moments like, for example, the last 2 days, I call it yellow lighting. So I use like how I'm feeling as like a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. And when we're yellow lighting, it's like you're feeling depleted. And that's where I had to go do some self-care. And I did yoga this morning. I went to the beach. I charged myself so that I can perform a lot better, like for the rest of the time. So I don't know if I kind of gave a straight answer, but it's just
No,
like,
it was good.
okay.
No, I mean, if you want to say more,
Yeah,
keep going.
I mean, so when it comes to emotions, it's not always like how you're going to feel in the moment. It's about like how you're going to feel on the other side. And your emotions aren't always reliable, but they can be a guidance system. So for example, say you step in a room and something feels off and you have like a tightness in your stomach or a tightness in your throat, or like a punch in the stomach or a punch in the heart. Like your body is your subconscious. That might be like your body telling you it's not safe to go in there. And so that's where intuition comes into place, and like spiritual guidance. And so it depends on the situation when it comes to like understanding your emotions. So when you're in change, your emotions aren't always reliable. It's important to use it as information, especially our negative thoughts and emotion as information, to not like shut them down and shut them up, but to embody them and to give them a voice, and then to have the discernment of knowing how you're going to make a decision based on them. And that just comes down into like depending on the situation and like going from there.
Can you explain the concept of forward movement mindset and how it contributes to personal and professional success?
So that I would say is like being a visionary and having a vision. Sometimes we can't see a vision, but if you set a goal and you start taking the steps, you'll have that. That's why I feel having mentorship and people that are doing better than you, that are smarter than you, and getting around people that you think are, or that you believe to be more successful than you is so important, because everybody has a cap and a ceiling. And so when you're putting yourself around other people or in rooms that have larger ceilings, it allows you to create a bigger vision that allows you to start moving forward and moving, just thinking bigger and moving forward in different ways. And mentorship and coaching is like really important in that, plus the accountability and support.
We are chatting with Tanya Oliver, and we're going to be right back. I'm Christina Flach, and I'm too busy.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Hello, I'm Christina Flach, and we are chatting with Tanya, and I want to go in a little deeper with this forward movement mindset.
I love that. Yeah, forward movement mindset is so critical, and it will help people be like stuck. You know, you hear a lot of people like, I feel stagnant, I feel stuck. Well, it's typically, I like to do this exercise called passion projects. And when we have this forward movement mindset, it's like having a vision and having your eye on a target. So it keeps you from, like, when you're going through hardship, you know, you and I spoke about this earlier in the conversation, when you're going through like a loss or grieving or something personal. I know I had my career, and you mentioned too, you had your career that you're passionate about to keep you in that forward movement mindset. And so I like to have like, I get like folders, and I make a list. And I make a list of like 12 passion projects that I want to invest in, whether it being financially, energetically, time-wise, just things that might be an interest. And I put 12 because like maybe one per month or something like that if I get to it. And then on the other folder, I'll put my past mess cleanup. So things that I am kind of like burying, I'm procrastinating, I'm avoiding, but I know that they're like zapping my energy. And when we're going through past mess cleanups and you're already going through stuff, it could make you like become really angry, really frustrated. But you know that you got to get them done. It's kind of like I explained, like it's like having these browsers up on your computer. And if you want to be in your full power, you got to close all the browsers so that we have like max speed and max energy. but those can be really painful and draining and discouraging and depressing. And so it's important to have like a passion project, a forward movement, something to like keep your mind forward that you're excited about while you're doing a past mess cleanup. So this way you're kind of like balancing out both, and it just kind of gives that like healthy stimulation while you're still like cleaning up things that maybe made some silly mistakes on in the past.
What are some common limiting beliefs that you've observed in high achievers, and how do you help them overcome those?
Limiting beliefs. I would say going back to the belief work one, where the like disappointment thing, and seeking things outside of themselves to look for fulfillment. I'll give an example. I was eating the other day. I think we can all relate to eating. And I was eating, and I made myself, one of my things is like I love having slow morning breakfasts and like making myself breakfast. It just makes me feel like I'm like nurturing myself.
Cozy. It's cozy.
Huh? Yeah, it's so cozy.
Cozy.
I love them. I hate rush breakfasts. I really do. So I love like making my eggs and like sitting and looking at the water. And I ate breakfast, and I was like, I don't feel satisfied. And then like a light bulb went off, because I it's also like my meditational space. And a light bulb went out, and I was like, wow, how relatable is this? It's like I'm not hungry, but I'm not satisfied. And that's a common thing that we feel as high achievers and entrepreneurs, is like you're like you haven't done enough, but like you're not satisfied with what you've done. Or you feel like you haven't done enough, but you're not satisfied. But the things that you keep striving to do are never going to satisfy you, because the satisfaction isn't about the thing or that next thing to check off your list. It's about like, are you doing things? And this is when everything happened, I'm like, okay, I got to bring God into everything that I do. I got to bring God into my business, into everything has to be the front and forward. And having that like guidance, where like you had mentioned about that book where it's like not about our plan. What did you say that book was called?
We Plan and God Laughs.
Yeah, We Plan and God Laughs. And that's literally what I felt in that moment of like, wow, we're seeking for fulfillment and satisfaction and all these check marks outside of ourselves. But if you're not doing things like in alignment to the Holy Spirit and to like what God is calling you to do, you're never going to feel satisfied, because that satisfaction is like is a within type of thing. And so I was like, wow, that really like hit. And so that kind of comes back into like what you're saying with the belief work, is like that like never satisfied. It's because maybe we need to stop and think like, where you seeking to fulfill isn't gonna come from the external world.
How does your Ultimate Achievers Academy differ from other personal development programs?
Well, when I was going through my healing journey and I was trying to figure it out, I had to go to so many different people and places to like have the wholeness of like my program, which is the mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. My first career was in personal training and nutrition. And so I understood that what we're eating impacts our gut health. And if our gut is our second brain, it impacts our mental clarity, our mental sharpness, which is what we rely on as entrepreneurs, right? But of course, when we need to be connected to our heart. And so I was like, okay, well, that's not enough, because people still have all these mental health stuff going on, even having like great bodies and taking care of themselves. And then when I was overcoming my own addictions, I started getting into shadow work, inner child work, behavioral, a lot of like affirmations, incantations, cellular memory release and reprogramming, EFT, like all these different certifications. I had to go to like all these different things. And I'm like, oh, wow. Dispensa with like tapping into the pineal gland, visualization, meditation, yoga. I have 2 yoga certifications, which is like all huge life coaching stuff. And like how to live life intentionally and honing into the breath. And so I had to take so many different things from different areas. And I'm like, why is this all like not in one? Like, why did I have to go so many avenues? But I believe that, when we're seeking a solution to something, sometimes we have to create it. And so that's where the Ultimate Achievers Academy was birthed, was because, well, I did one-on-one coaching, and then I have the Mastermind Elite, and the Inner Circle is more a passion project because I want this type of coaching accessible to anybody. And I think everybody deserves to have this type of coaching, regardless of their financial tier. And so I want, whether somebody's starting low and working high, I wanted to create the Ultimate Achiever so that money should never really be an issue.
Where's your happy place?
My meditation practice. The beach, rollerblading, yoga, sleeping. I'm dancing. I salsa dance. So it just depends. The gym sometimes, being around quality conversations. This is my happy place too. I love having enlightening conversations. I love serving. I love working with clients. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different pieces of my happy place, but the place where I feel my most connected and my security, where I anchor into security, is into my meditation practice, where I get to really hone into the future that I'm creating, but most importantly, I get to hone into the creator.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I hope still alive. I don't know. I don't really know. I just kind of I can only see as far as this year, but this year I want to have sober events for conscious entrepreneurs, combine the outpatient. I used to work in outpatient centers with pro athletes and celebrities and executives, and also the sports camps. So combining the sports camps with the outpatient, and I see like hosting events. And I see, the book being done and getting back on stages, and that's all I really can see up until this point. That's as clear as a vision as I have up until now.
I think that sounds fantastic. I can't thank you enough, Tanya, for being on the show today. You have inspired all of us.
Oh, thank you.
All your info is going to be in the show notes. And I thank everyone. And I take everyone, please give Tanya, contact her if you want to get to another level. She will help you get there. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I will be back next week with I'm Too Busy.
This has been I'm Too Busy with host Christina Flach. Tune in each week as Christina approaches the concept of success holistically, recognizing that achievement is not solely measured by financial triumphs, but also by maintaining a healthy work-life balance and focusing on self-care. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.